Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar with the team from Byron Bay Bio. My name is Emily. I'm the Senior Campaign Lead here at Birchal. And just before I introduce you to the team, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we are coming to you from today. Birchal is based on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and we pay our respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. Today, I am joined by Jeff, Will, Lloyd, and Daniel from Byron Bay Bio. Birchal's working with the Byron Bay Bio team on their upcoming crowdsource funding offer. A few of you might be unfamiliar with what crowdsource funding or CSF is. You might know it as equity crowdfunding, but it's a relatively new fundraising form in Australia that started in about 2018, and it allows startups and small businesses to raise capital from a large number of smaller or retail investors, as well as wholesale and sophisticated investors through an online platform such as Birchal. So instead of seeking funding from traditional sources such as banks or venture capitalists, companies can turn to the general public, and often that's their communities, to raise money in exchange for equity in their business. Birchal Financial Services will be the licensed intermediary for the offer, and I do want to remind everybody who's watching today that the information and discussion in this webinar is for informational purposes only and should not be considered as advice or a recommendation to invest. So I'd implore you all to do your own research and always consider the general CSF risk warning and offer document before investing. If you do have any questions or need any more information, you can head to birchal.com. Now, how today's session is going to run, the team at Byron Bay Bio is going to take us through a great presentation all about Byron Bay Bio, where they've come from, and what they're looking to achieve with their capital raise with Birchal. We'll then switch to a Q&A session. So if you have a look at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you'll see a little Q&A bubble. If you have any questions during today's session, please pop it in the Q&A box as we go along, and we'll endeavour to answer as many as possible at the Q&A time at the end. We're also recording today's session, so if you do need to jump off early, a recording will be sent around. So now that I've finished talking, I'm going to hand over to the team. Please take it away.
Great. Thank you for that great introduction, Emily. And welcome to everyone to join us on today's Byron Bay Bio webinar. Basically, we're going to go through basically what we actually do and also the opportunity that we present. We think is a global leading opportunity for investment into cannabis and everything around products associated with that as well. So, Lloyd, can I just get you to jump to the next slide, please? Sorry. So Byron Bay Bio effectively is started in Australia through Will Stolk on the call here. Now, Will always had an interest in actually cannabis and actually is an extreme athlete, but also had a lot of background in publicity and promotion as well. And obviously he got friends with Corey in the USA, who actually helped create the brands in the USA, being the Tyga Green dispensary, the Pheno Hunts, and that's actually been the base foundation to where this is built from. Will got me to be involved about 2 years ago to help redirect the company and make it a bit more corporate and strategize it to where we thought we can have the best push for what we're doing. And so really Byron Bay Bio is a private Australian company. We're focused on a sustainable ecosystem, global supply of premium medicinal and recreational cannabis products. What really differentiates us from everyone else is that we do that end-to-end system. Everything from understanding seed genomics and developing new strains of seeds, right through the cultivation methodology in agronomy, all the way into technical processing and then distribution of the products into the hands of medicinal cannabis users or recreational users as well. And we believe we're the first company in the world to really understand what's required in that ecosystem end to end. And obviously that brings up another element too that's very important to understand. The Australian cannabis market has a lot of restrictions for both good and bad reasons, but effectively the market demand is growing exponentially. So we're positioning ourselves to take not just advantage of that bit, but to actually be at the forefront of delivering what everyone wants as far as standardization, safety of products, and more importantly, to deliver high quality product into the hands of the consumers. So we do that by we have exclusive access to some of the world's leading science organizations, and we're just very lucky that Australia is currently leading the world in research around cannabis. Mainly from an agricultural perspective, where we're doing the DNA sequencing, which is a bit like if you go and get your genealogy test of your family history, and you get a whole DNA footprint of what your history and where you come from. This does the same thing with plants. We can really break into the whole DNA structure of a plant now that has historically not been able to be done. This allows us to do very interesting things to optimize particular characteristics, whether it be improved bud yield, it might be for a particular compound that's required for pharmaceutical industry, or it might be something else that could be a terpene that helps with sleep. But we really feel understanding the nuances of science and not just get lost in the academia of that, but to take that groundbreaking technology and deliver to the consumer in the process of standardizing our product and delivering a safe product that has high level of efficacy as well. Next slide, please, Lloyd. So the Byron Bay Bio Management team, we're sort of a bit of an eclectic mix of people. Obviously, Will is come from a background as a pro-sphere. He also had a lot of background as far as content creation, working with other creatives, with Red Bull and cinema and other aspects as well. So he really used to driving cutting-edge brand recognition and marketing capability. So he brings a wealth of knowledge. And we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for Will's dream and what he wanted to actually portray in this company. So well done, Will, for getting this off the ground and getting to the point where it is today. I won't talk too much about myself. I can easily be found on LinkedIn if you want to look me up. I've had a lot of background experience in everything from manufacturing to design, innovation, won quite a few awards for new products. But more importantly, I really focus on applied science and taking applied science and commercializing it. Tend to deal with what most other people don't want to deal with, and that is taking academic science at the highest level and actually going through the commercialization phase to make it real and to get it into the world. I've done this successfully across different areas in 3D printing and sport products and other areas as well. But more importantly, my main focus generally in these high level games is we get big investments coming in, and my sole job is actually run the current company efficiently and make sure that we're providing an excellent return on investment for our investors that come on board as well. Our other bit to make that sort of realization and to make sure we're hitting all the proper strategies around investments, when people hand over their hard-earned dollars to us, we want to make sure that they feel it's in safe hands and we have the best team to actually deliver what we say we're going to do. One of my previous colleagues I've worked with extensively in other companies is Peter Vaughan. Peter is one of the most sought after CFOs in Australia, and he's our financial advisor. Now, he brings a wealth of experience. He's been involved with over $3 billion worth of capital raising over the years. But more importantly, he brings that strong acumen as far as financial risk auditing and assessment to actually make sure that all the money we're getting in and how we spend our money is actually done frugally, but more importantly, it meets all regulatory standardization too. Now, last but not least is Daniel. Now, Daniel is an experienced executive. He has a lot of experience in SEO, digital strategy, and social media marketing. Actually holds some excellent certifications from schools such as London Business School, and I believe recently more Harvard. He's done a course there as well too. So Daniel brings a great knowledge of sales and marketing strategy to the company to make sure that, once again, where we spend our money, we're getting bang for buck as far as delivery of sales that we say we're going to do. Next slide, please, Lloyd. So Byron Bay Bio CBD was basically the main branded product that we actually do that Will brought to the market. Both Will and myself have extensive sports backgrounds. We've both competed as professional athletes over the years. And obviously what comes with that is a lot of injuries. And the older you get, the more those injuries come to play. So we basically had a realization that one of the best things for the market into Australia was around CBD. But more importantly, the market is currently flooded in Australia with CBD oils. And unfortunately, there's a lot of illicit CBDs on the market. What we're focused on, more importantly, is understanding the nuances of the Australian market is a very competitive area. We have a lot of restrictions because of the TGA. So we've really put a focus into finding a differentiator in our product to everyone else. Now, no one currently has what we call an over-the-counter product of CBD or cannabis products in Australia. Over-the-counter means you can go without a script to buy that product in the chemist, and sometimes even in supermarkets down the track further. So our CBD product is one of the best purified oils in the world because we use the sort of latest technology, but more importantly, we source some very good organic suppliers that use limited fertilizers. So we look at our input product is, we think, the premium product. But more importantly, to really get the bang out of CBD to actually act as a healing process, we actually infuse it with other herbal extracts as well. Now, what this does is really enhances its capability for sports. We've had some very interesting trials we've done in the USA with some UFC fighters as far as using the cream to help repair scars. We've had quite a few people, myself included, that have some arthritis kicking in now. So we use that as a help to relieve some of that pain as well. Once again, though, because of our restrictions with the TGA, we can't make bold claims that it heals this or relieves this part. What we can say, though, we leave it up to each individual to understand what they want to do with these products. But we know from our own experience, it works for me and other people. But it really comes back to how each person wants to experience cannabis products and find that use for purpose for them. So really the Byron Bay CBD product line is around two areas. One is around their CBD balms, which are based everything from sports creams. We've done some work with tattoo artists as well, as far as the cream for like numbing agent, but with CBD oils that actually promote relaxation of the skin. And also we've recently been working with some cosmetic surgeons that are interested in our creams to apply before they do cosmetic surgery, such as Botox and areas like that. But also, more importantly, we have a very good range of products for pets that we're coming on to, showing considerable capability for pets CBD as well. So I might jump to the next slide, please, Lloyd. So basically, to understand a little bit about our medicinal products of CBD and look at the scale of the market is growing exponentially. I think we're talking about $12.8 billion currently in 2021, that was, and expected to keep growing until 2028. So when we talk about CAGR, that means compounded annual growth. So we're looking anything over 5% compounded annual growth is seen as an excellent industry to get involved with to look at that growth. And we're looking at a 21.7% growth in this sector. What really, once again, though, differentiates us from everyone else's product with our one is how we infuse these other herbals in our CBD. So when you're actually using it for, say, as a sports balm, you get these other benefits of the other areas. Now, we also know, like I said, in Australia, it's very hard to get these products onto the market here. So we're working diligently with the TGA to improve the capability to have our products certified with them as an over-the-counter product. If we achieve this, it will be the first product in Australia as such, but also we're mindful of the difficulty involved in doing that. So even though that is our strategy, we're doing our hardest to do it. We're not 100% where the TGA is going to respect what we want to do. But more importantly, we have designed the product to meet the guidelines that TGA put out for over-the-counter product. Second part of that bit is how we look at distribution of this product. In the US, we have what we call affiliated marketing, which is basically using online sales platforms to actually deliver our product. We've done a lot of work with our affiliated marketing people in the US, and on average, the top 5 companies selling CBD online are ranging between $200,000 to $1 million per month in online sales of CBD. And the main bit we're focused on as our marketing strategy in the US is the key differentiator as far as not just another CBD product, but the fact we have that infusion of other herbal extracts in our material as well. And our market strategy, because of that, has been understanding our competitor analysis of the online sales currently and where we can fit into that area. So we're very excited to be releasing that product within the next 6 weeks into the US market. And so we're very hopeful of very strong sales in that sector as well. Next slide, please, Lloyd. The other area that's showing exponential growth in the cannabis area is actually the pet market. I know in Australia, the pet market is roughly, I think the average expenditure of people with a pet in Australia is about $350 a week. So people nowadays treat their pets like children in a way. So it's a huge expendable income associated with pet use. And we believe CBD really offers some really interesting thing about reducing cortisol, which is basically a stress hormone in pets that actually creates anxiety and also unwanted behaviors of pets that we all have experienced and recognized. Now, we also know our same dogs age and cats too, sometimes they get arthritic. And that we know some of the products we're doing here now definitely help relieve that bit. But once again, we can't make bold claims of exactly the efficacy and what it does. We do know it is showing promising benefits to use in pets. Now, that could be in the form of edibles that we give to the pet, but also oils are hard to put onto a pet. So we're actually working on a spray process that can go under the pets as well. So I think our next slide, Lloyd, is around one of our other products that we're doing here in Australia. So to this stage now, I'll hand over to Daniel, who's basically the brains behind Mary Jane Beer, and I'll leave Daniel explain everything what we're doing there. Thanks.
Right. Hi, guys. Lovely to meet you all. So I started Mary Jane Beer about 2 years ago. we saw the emergence of the hemp beer category in Australia, and we saw what some of the other players were doing, and we thought we could do it much better. We looked at trends across the alcohol industry and what were the growing segments of the market. So we looked at a non-alcoholic beer that was infused with a herbal blend that could actually simulate a cannabis style effect and give someone a relaxating experience, but without the hangover or without any of the negative consequences of drinking alcohol. So we've done a bunch of peer testing. Things have been really well received. And we've also looked at the growth potential of it. So just to quote some numbers and back to the CAGR side of things. So we're seeing a 10.8% CAGR until 2030, which again is tremendous. And that will grow from 726 million to 1.3 billion during that period. So our plan of attack for this launch is initially we're going to launch in Australia with a hemp infused one with a number of other ingredients to simulate that effect. Things like St. John's wort, ashwagandha, terpenes. So we're working heavily with the TGA to ensure that it's compliant with all their restrictions, but can still give the consumer a good effect. In addition to that, we've also just recently signed distribution deals for Thailand and North America, where we can look to extend it to a CBD and a THC infused product. So that's, again, a huge growth market for us. So we're really excited about that. And then just finally, in terms of product extension, so we're initially launching with a beer, but we're also looking to broaden that to, I guess, destigmatize cannabis for a non-male audience. So those product extensions, we're doing a sweet iced tea. We're also been looking at a kombucha range, some white and red wines, both in the non-alcoholic and alcoholic variety, and a series of sports drinks too, because we understand obviously some of the pain relief properties of CBD in those legal markets. So we feel there's going to be a huge uplift opportunity there. So we're very excited for it. We're ready to go. As soon as everything's launched, you'll see it out on the shelves. We already have in Australia a 15 venue deal to do a launch process. So we're going to do a launch party. So any of the investors that come on board, we'd love to invite you to that party.
Thank you, Daniel, for that. So Lloyd, next slide, please. So I'm going to hand over to Will now, who's probably our expert on cannabis here. So I'll let Will sort of explain about what we're doing with the Pheno Hunt brand in the USA. Over to you, Will.
Hi guys, how are we today? I hope we're all well. You may have seen me before from some of our publicity stunts involving cannabis legalization here in Australia and probably all over the world. I've been a really big advocate of cannabis for a long, long time. I used to be a professional freestyle skier and freeride skier, and I met a colleague of mine, Corey Zeiler, many, many years ago in Switzerland, and we spent many years traveling around the world trying to find the best weed we could find. And through that passion, we came together and we started a cannabis dispensary 3.5 years ago at the bottom of Yosemite National Park, which is actually the second biggest tourist attraction in California. They get millions and millions of people that come there. We opened that and it started doing really well. And then we decided that we wanted to start our own flower brand. And that's how we came up with Pheno Hunts. So what happened was we've gotten in touch with some of the best growers in California. Some of the people that we're not allowed to mention have won the the very famous Cannabis Cup for High Times several times, and the even more now infamous Emerald Cup 7 or 8 times. We're working with some of the best growers from obviously the iconic Humboldt County and Grass Valley and that kind of Mendocino County Golden Triangle. And what our aim is to kind of find the best cannabis on the market and then take the exo pheno hunts of these growers and then put them into our own packaging, and then we sell them into currently 20 different retail shops. Our brand is really unique in the fact that we kind of put them in a bag and that you kind of get a mix of different flavors, kind of like Skittles. We're working with some of the best growers pretty much on the planet, and we're looking to expand into hopefully after Hall of Flowers next month, which is the biggest cannabis trade show for growers and cultivators and dispensary owners, and also everyone in the industry in California on September 15. That's what we're actually going to have a stand there for the first time. At the moment, we're buying, we have a unit cost per half ounce of $21.21, and the ounce cost of for us at $38.78. And we're actually selling them to the retailers, half an ounce for 45 USD and 1 ounce at 65 USD. So we're more than doubling our unit price on our profit, which is really, really awesome. We're also doing rosin pens and all-in-ones. And we're really looking forward to kind of taking that to the next level. We sold out of our first 2 batches of cannabis. We're currently in a lot of iconic shops like Be Real from Cypress Hills shop in San Diego, which is called Dr. Green Thumb. You might have heard that song, that iconic cannabis song, Dr. Green Thumb. That's what Be Real has actually opened a couple of shops in Southern California, which we're selling in. We're currently in Catalyst. We're talking to one of the biggest distribution companies in California to be able to expand that out into the market. And then we're also talking to several different cultivators in new territories, including Michigan, New York State, potentially Florida if they legalize, Arizona. And so the growth potential for this brand is astronomical, and we're looking forward to the future because we're really going to make a really big impact in the Californian market and then in the rest of the US market. And then hopefully soon, potentially we'll extend that into Europe and maybe into Australia.
Great. Thanks, Will. Thanks for that sort of oversight too. But maybe can you just add a little bit more about what we mean by pheno hunting and what is the unique value proposition of the pheno hunt product as far as when cultivators are sort of growing their leftover?
So pheno hunting is when strain hunters are looking to establish new strains and then launch them into the marketplace. They'll do different kinds of testing and cross-pollination. They'll then come up with their most epic strain that they can, and they'll have a series of mother plants. They'll then take the best mother plant that they personally like, and then they'll use that as the mother plant, and then they'll clone that plant, and then they'll use that as their strain that they'll launch into the market. At the same time, they have another 20 to 30 different mother plants that also exist in the genome, and then we take those all that extra weed that they normally would just kind of not be able to sell, and it's obviously at the same quality as what the strain that they picked is, and then we then take that, repackages it into our own little bags that we've done as a collaboration with Grove Bags, and then we launch them into the market. So what our unique proposition is that we're actually helping growers with their process, because we're taking all of their exo-pheno hunts and making it profitable for them to expand into new strains and making it more economically affordable for them. And then also we're getting strains that no one else on the market has, and it's a limited run of product that then goes into the market, and that's a really unique value proposition that no one else in the market has done before.
Great, thanks for that, Will. Much appreciated. Lloyd, can we jump to the next slide now, please? So I'll talk a little bit about Tyga Green. I know Will covers off on that a little bit, but look, Tyga Green is sort of probably our main profitable part of the business at the moment. We don't have that big a stake in at the moment. We have 10.5% equity in that bit that we're open to a position to actually increase our equity standing in that as well too. So that's looking very promising. But more importantly, it has quite a good turnover. Their financial year is the calendar year from January to December. I know in 2023, we had just under $1 million turnover US dollars, which is quite exceptional considering that was quite a bad year in the US for sales. But generally, we're looking at increasing those sales, as well too, by offering more services, more product. But more importantly, Tyga Green also acts as our distribution center as well. And that allows us to distribute the pheno hunt products and a couple other products called Zero to Hero we're also working on in the background as well. But more importantly, we took a different strategy to dispensaries in the US. Most dispensary chains are very centric to large metro cities in the USA, with a high cluster of dispensaries in Los Angeles, San Francisco, and other areas. More importantly, everyone's sort of neglected regional areas, and the regional areas make up a huge population in the US. And so what our strategy with our dispensaries is, we're setting up a whole new range of dispensaries in regional areas with basically country towns. Obviously, we don't just jump in, we actually look at the demographics of an area, we look at the population, we look at the basic statistical data as far as that use of cannabis, and we know if we enter into some of these areas, we've got an immediate customer base. Some of these customers in these regional towns actually are having to drive up to 400 or 500 kilometers to get the product they want. So we believe we have a really good strategy as far as our dispensaries, as far as focusing on particular regional areas and build a chain around that area. So we're actually looking at 2 new premises. We're actually looking at the leasehold on at the moment, but we're very excited about expanding that strategy we have about doing dispensaries in the regional base area. Obviously, you know, in the US, because of the legality of it, you can sell, especially in California. It gives us an opportunity to keep pushing forward on that bit. And it looks like, from what we're hearing at the moment, the current US elections coming up in a big debate between all. One of the things on the election area campaign is around legalizing cannabis in the USA as a federal area. Now, this will actually really help promote the product moving forward, and we're very excited to sort of see that outcome, what happens relative to that bit. If we go to full legalization, it makes it a lot easier as far as everything from your financial and accounting measures, because at the moment it has to be done at a state level and it gets quite tricky at that area. But we think we're very confident in what we've done with Tyga Green. Our founder over there in Coreyzilla is exemplified as one of the leading cannabis consultants in the USA. He has a lot of doctors, a lot of cancer patients approach him to give advice. And he's advised thousands of patients over the years. So we're very, very lucky to have someone of Corey's capability in the USA to really help, really drive what we think is that expansion model. And I reference back to what I talked earlier about our ecosystem, not about just having product and finding a unique thing, but having the whole end-to-end process where we can actually develop the product and sell it to the end consumer as well. All right, so next slide, please, Lloyd. So this is probably the area I have the most interest in, what we call Byron Bay Biotech. Now, with Byron Bay Biotech, I've spent 2 years sort of looking around, understanding the technology and applied science that's happening in the cannabis sector. And I mentioned earlier, we're very lucky that we have some of the leading research centres in agriculture and medicinal capability in Australia, and especially in Melbourne. So we're working very closely with them. And we are working with a US company called LeafWorks, who's basically seen as the prominent tester of cannabis in the USA. But more importantly, they're working very closely with the Department of Cannabis Control around legalization, but most importantly, the safety of cannabis through what we call standardization process. So really with Byron Bay Biotech, we have a couple of different strategies. And obviously I mentioned earlier about the genealogy of how we can look at any strain and actually test the DNA of it. Now, what that gives us is a capability to actually patent plants. Patenting plants is quite an extensive process involved with doing that. And where we've had people such as Monsanto and other big seed suppliers actually came up with what we called a monopolization process on patenting their seeds. I'm not a big fan sometimes of some large areas like this where it actually can be detrimental to people, like in Africa. They can't regrow their seeds. They have to use some of these seeds from Monsanto and so forth like that. So in a way, we took their capability and technology about patenting seeds and we applied that to cannabis to open up that market to protect what we call the legacy growers in the USA, but more importantly, to come up with really standardization around the various varieties of seeds and the particular levels, so we can actually look at the genealogy that actually help the characteristics of the plant, whether it be increased yield if you're just a cultivator wanting to have bulk and sell more product to sell, or for a specific CBD or CBG product, some of the compounds within the plant, and also some of the flavor profiles and cannabinoid levels as well. So we're really entering into a very exciting area of plant-based science now. But more importantly, I think the thing that I am very happy about is this gives us the base foundation to really enter into proper medical efficacy of cannabis, which has been a bit of a failure up until now. There's a lot of pushback from Big Pharma, but I always say, if you have a product that's a plant-based medicine, you have a synthesized medicine, and it's generally made from petroleum-based chemicals. If you have those two products that have the same level of efficacy, in other words, its ability to treat a problem, most people in the world nowadays will actually go to the plant-based option. So we believe this is a great option moving forward. We also understand the discourse in the world at the moment where a lot of people lost confidence with the medical fraternity, especially Big Pharma, after through every think we've gone through with COVID. So we think we're in the right time, the right place to really be pushing plant-based medicines as a holistic alternative to the synthesized material. And where it gets exciting for us as well is this ability to be able to patent the plant itself. Because we can do the DNA of each particular plant, it allows us to understand those specific characteristics, which is what we call in the patent world as novelty. It allows us to have a novel strain because it has a different characteristics from another plant, and we know this is patentable. Interesting thing with patents on plants, you can only patent a plant in Australia, New Zealand, and the USA at the moment. But we're very happy with that because of the markets we're playing in anyway. So can I just jump to the next slide, please, Lloyd? So some of the capabilities we have with our science technology, and I won't bore anyone too deep on this because I love my technology and science and I don't want to go too down a rabbit warren here. But effectively, once again, it's the end-to-end science capability that we offer for our biotech services, everything from sequencing and genotyping the DNA of the plant, understanding the bioscience, the computing, which allows us to look at, if you want to extract a particular compound from medicine, we look at the best variety that will have the highest level of that compound to be able to extract. When we look at some of the metabolomics and proteomics as far as understanding the nuances in growing and everything relative to how the molecular interaction of all the compounds in plants work. We also look at the plant phenomics as far as how we grow there. And now we've actually reached a point where we have what we call a digital twin. They can actually have a mother plant and know the rate that that should be growing at. And now we can visually actually capture that information through cameras and digitally compare to a base model. This allows the full automation of cannabis process. Now, at the same time, even though we're pushing for that, we're also very mindful of legacy growers. And one of the things we've found in the US is outdoor growing of cannabis is still favorable by some recreational cannabis connoisseurs. They much prefer outdoor grown cannabis and indoor. Indoor has a lot more chemicals associated with it and processes, a lot higher even carbon emissions because of the lights used to grow it as well. And most importantly though, sometimes the quality of the outdoor cannabis when it's grown with very good agronomy technologies, it actually meets the same strength qualities of normal indoor grown cannabis. But most importantly, it's a lot cheaper to grow and a lot less chemicals involved in it as well. And we're a big fan of pushing that bit. And the added benefit from the carbon footprint side is hemp and cannabis plants are one of the largest basically carbon sequestering plants in the world. So they pull a lot of carbon dioxide out of the air as well. But we think that's a great element too, that we're also mindful of our sustainability moving forward. So basically the snapshot, what we do with Byron Bay Biotech Services is an end-to-end process relative where we take the cutting edge science and advanced applied science and we apply that to consumer these. When I mean by consumers, I mean our cultivators and all the industry that's actually growing. So we already have a huge amount of people that have actually signed up for this program with us to actually not only help protect their IP of their plant strain, but more importantly, it's given us access to the world leading seeds. And another part of this bit too, is we believe by creating a large seed bank, what we hope to be the world's largest seed bank, they'll actually characterize each particular strain in its use. So we'll become a seed bank for everyone from your home grower to industrial growers to the pharmaceutical industry, looking for that particular strain. We want to be at the forefront of creating the characteristics of the particular strain to be able to deliver upon that model. Okay, so next slide, please, Lloyd. So basically the biotech side, I'll just summarize what we're doing here. Basically, it's developed by us recently. We're basically working with some very significant people. We're just in the process at the moment under contract with a laboratory, a private laboratory in Victoria that already tests for mold in other areas. And that's going very well. And we'll hopefully be announcing that partnership within the coming week as well. So we feel that's really pushing us at a high level. And the good news too, we've also got some interest from some of the media where we'll be running some media stories relative to what we're doing around standardization of cannabis in Australia. And hopefully we'll be covered in mainstream networks within the next week or so on that as well. One of the biggest problems associated with Australia is around standardization of cannabis. If you buy cannabis at the moment off the shelf, through a registered medicinal supplier where you run a telehealth script, you go to a dispensary and pick up your cannabis. There's no real proof to labeling, we call it, right? The labeling might say it has a particular percentage of THC and CBD, but when we actually test those products, they don't necessarily meet those requirements. So we understand one of the things that are holding the cannabis legislation back that actually helps regulate it for legalizing it and also providing safe products to clients, customers, is there's a lack of standardization in Australia. Now, normally most people think, oh, standardization, that's red tape, a lot of bureaucracy, very onerous in that process. My background in defense and aerospace, I had to do a lot with certification and regulation. And for one reason, if you get in a plane, it's not safe, you don't want it falling out of the sky. Well, it's the same thing with cannabis here. That if you buy a product, we want to make sure what the customer's buying is exactly what it says on the labeling. But more importantly, to be able to put through proper testing regimens. And at the moment, there's not really any process of testing that's very heavily regulated, but none of the imported products coming from Canada and Australia for legal medicinal cannabis are actually being checked or tested. And we feel this is a failure of our government and the TGA to actually meet criteria to deliver safe product to people. So we're at the forefront actually pushing those boundaries, working with government as well to help introduce new policy around standardization. That standardization requires a lot of technology. And we are sitting, Byron Bay Bio, we're sitting in our biotech division and sitting at the forefront of that technology and equipment too. So we're very excited about what we're doing here. And we know undoubtedly that we're leading the world in this space as well. So I'll finish off there and now I'll jump to the next slide. Thanks, Lloyd. So I'll pass over to Lloyd now, who many of you probably have already talked to on the phone. Lloyd is running our campaign through Birchal and talking directly with a lot of invested potential. So all over to you, Lloyd, now. Thank you.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. Hopefully some of you have spoken with me already. I've been busy calling as many people as I can just to make a personal connection with you guys and so that you actually hear from someone from the team. So I wanted to just give you a quick summary of the investment opportunity for Byron Bay Bio. It might be a little bit of information overload. I know these webinars are hard to sort of focus on. So I'll do a little summary of, really how I see this business being unique and how I think about the business. So really what it comes down to us, there are two arms of the business. We have the brands and distribution, and we have the expertise of Will and the expertise of cannabis in the company to really create brands that matter and resonate in the market. And these are not just brands that we're building, these are brands that are already live and generating revenue for the business in the US. We haven't actually made any money so far in Australia because of the legislative issues here. So we're focused on the US, which is a far bigger market. And we have a strategic asset over there, which is Tyga Green. So as Jeff mentioned, Tyga Green is a retail dispensary, but it's also a distribution hub. And it's a very respected and renowned dispensary in the USA due to its location and due to Corey being such a well-known person in the cannabis world. So we have distribution for our brands, and for any brands that we may develop in the future, we're going to have guaranteed distribution and sales. And so the other side of the business is the biotechnology side of the business. And this is, perhaps the more exciting side of the business. There's big appetite in public markets, such as the ASX, for biotechnology companies. And we've really got world-leading technology there that is going to help us. It's going to help us improve what's happening with legislation. We all know that Australia's, a bit slow when it comes to things like this. So the way that we're actually going to introduce the standardization, and it's such a simple thing, but the labeling that is required to ensure everyone that it's safe is something that we're really focusing on. So the biotechnology side of the business is going to be very exciting. It's going to be high margin, and it's really going to help us to just take the whole business forward in sort of a technology and a brand perspective. So, I won't go too much more into it because you've heard a lot from the guys. But what I just wanted to sort of wrap up with is again just to thank you for your time, and thanks for making the time in your day. And we're going to go to the Q&A section in a minute. So I want you guys just to, if you've got, I can see there's some questions there, so that's great. Ask as many questions as you need from us now, and we're going to send an email as well. You'll be able to book in a call with myself or Daniel, and we're happy to have one-on-one chats with you. I want you guys to gain as much comfort as you can with us and with the business. And the investment period is going to start on the 3rd of September. We've actually pushed it back a week because we've got some material events happening for the business in terms of some of the press and publicity that's about to go out. So the investment period will start on the 3rd of September. So ask as many questions as you like. We want you to gain a comfort level with us and with the business. And what I'm going to be asking some of you that I've had some conversations with, and anyone who's listening now is feeling very confident, is when that investment period starts on the 3rd of September, I'm going to ask you to invest with us right at the very start of that period, if you're feeling confident, because there might be some people on the call today that they're on the fence. There's a lot of people today that couldn't make it. I've spoken with some people that just could not make it today, so they're going to get a recording. But it's really important that first 24 to 48 hours that we see some good investments coming into the business, and it's just going to help our success. So if you're feeling very confident, then we would really appreciate if you jump on board with us early, and it's really going to help the business. So I think that's it from me. Do we have Emily to... Hi, Emily. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much. If we can stop sharing the screen so I can see all of your lovely faces, that would be absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. I've had quite a few questions come through, so I'll start at the very top. Are there any women in high-level leadership roles in the company currently?
In the US, yes, we have two ladies in the US working that bit, but unbelievably to that question is that we're finding a lot of the top-level PhD scientists that we're working with, I think it's predominantly women, actually, to be honest, right? So we're looking at probably a ratio of 70-30 on that level. But, we're very active as far as just we hire the best people for the job. And we generally find, my own experience in dealing with science, we tend to find that women are a bit better, to be honest, on the science level thing. But more importantly, at the moment, a very small team in Australia is pretty much us who you see. But obviously, we've got a lot of expansion we're doing here. So I am in discussion with 2 ladies in Australia to look at help run some of our operations here as well. But we're very sort of multi-gender as far as the company goes.
Great, thank you. Are you going to be entering into any research and development for different strains or phenotypes?
Yeah, it's a very complex question in a way, but that simple answer to that bit is once we actually understand the standardization and we have the different capability of the strains, we actually are looking at funding some very high-level medical studies to look at efficacy. We feel one of the things that's been lacking in the cannabis industry is people doing things properly and regimentally. So when we look at that capability, that's all what we're trying to do with the biotech side of it, identify all new strains and even do some cross-breeding to get the properties we want. But more importantly, once we have those properties, to understand how do we standardize the properties of that so we get regular supply of that, and then more importantly we apply that standardization into medical studies so we know if you are going to do a medical study, that standardization is there for the repeatability and to make sure the efficacy and safety is there for the product too. So to answer the question, yes, it's a very strong area we're very passionate about pushing, And the reason we're pushing that is we believe this is the path for plant-based medicine to actually sort of nearly in a way surpass what we call synthesized allopathy medicine. And I think the only way that can happen is by doing it properly, and we believe this process is the right way to move forward.
So thank you. How did you come up with the name Byron Bay Bio?
Will?
I'm from the Northern Rivers. I've lived here for about almost 20 years. I'm originally from the Northern Beaches in Sydney. I thought that really having spent a lot of time in Byron Bay and having had, my family had a family holiday house there, and we did several developments in Byron. So I've spent a lot of my life there. I actually live on a big rural farm probably about 20 minutes from Byron. And really, Byron Bay represents kind of like a health and wellness aspect that's kind of synonymous all through the world. And we thought that, why not celebrate the local heritage and the local history of that? And it kind of represented what we're doing and where we're trying to go. And obviously some of the best cannabis in the world has been grown in this region for many, many decades. And obviously we want to stay true to both our recreational side and our medicinal side of what we're trying to achieve here.
Awesome, thank you. Do you have a minimum amount that investors can invest to get shares in the company?
Lloyd, I'll hand over to you for this one.
Well, maybe Emily can say. I mean, I think, look, we've had interest as low as $50 in the campaign, and we've had a couple of investors who've said they're interested in putting in more than $100,000. So I don't think there actually is a minimum, Emily, or maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong.
That's okay. So companies set their own minimum entry level to get into the companies, essentially. Generally, the average minimum is $250. So that will be announced when the offer goes live on the 3rd of September. So currently, do you have any licenses for the following in Australia: import or export, manufacturing and distribution?
No, we don't at the moment, but we partner with companies that do. We felt like the actual exorbitant cost involved in getting those licenses, and more recently we've seen 3 publicly listed ASX listed companies in Australia go bankrupt. And they spent huge amount of money on the licensing. So we realized it's an endless pit of money you've got to throw into those licensing. We felt it's in our best interest to work with existing licensees in that area, in the pharmaceutical industry, distribution and that. So from our angle, we work in the back end as far as deliveries and distribution, but we're really focused on using those existing suppliers that we have out there, or distributing channels as well. We feel like it's a better way to reduce our overhead costs, but also make sure we meet all the regulatory requirements.
Great, thank you so much. So why have you decided to go down the route of equity crowdfunding versus traditional funding?
A really good question. And look, I've raised a lot of money in Australia, about 200 mil, and my partner's raised a lot as well. What I've learned going to our brokers and normal VC, angel investor, that type of area, unfortunately, the word cannabis has a sort of negative connotation still attached to it. And I know when I went to my normal investors that I've worked with previously, they'll go, yeah, but no, not this time. So we looked around as far as what is the best investment platform for raising capital in the cannabis industry, and we came across Birchal. So I'm going to give Birchal a plug here, right? Because Birchal leads that field in Australia as far as raising capital for cannabis industries, and they've created that traction now. So we just thought we were crazy if we didn't go down that path with Birchal, because they've had phenomenal success already. I believe 12 cannabis companies you've raised capital for. But that's the main reason, because there was still a negative connotation around cannabis with a lot of investors push back. And it's one of those ones, behind the scenes, people openly talk. But you talk about cannabis in a group, everyone starts looking at their feet or the ground. So really, there's the only reason we went to the crowdfunding platform is basically because we felt that was our best process to raising the capital.
Great, thank you. And at this point as well, somebody has asked what the funds will be used for and what portion of the businesses you'll be getting when you do invest. So the use of funds will be released in the offer document, and it will be quite detailed when the offer does go live to the public. Equally, the percentage of the businesses that are under the Byron Bay Bio umbrella, that will be included in the offer document as well. So if you haven't expressed your interest already, I'd recommend that you do so that you are aware when the offer does go live. Yes, we can answer your questions, James. So just getting to quite a few. So at the moment, are you predominantly using the flower, and what rates do you get per gram? Did you want to speak about this publicly, or would you prefer to email this to James privately?
James I can talk publicly. It really depends on the particular end product we're making. It comes to concentrations, right? So if you, obviously with flower, you're trimming the flower, the bud down, and you're just selling that bud. If we're then extracting those flowers into CBD or the rosin is a very concentrated form. So normally from the flowers, you can actually produce, we're talking about the high level THC products here. So you can actually produce oils and you can produce hashes. But the rosin is the flavor at the moment. The rosin is even a higher level concentrate. Because it's not done with heat, it's a cold fusion process. It allows all those enzymes and compounds and flavor profiles to stay within that material. So it's a concentrated form. The exact numbers I can't give, but I would suggest it's about a 10-to-1 ratio. If you put some of those rosin products can be even less. So if you put 10 kilograms of material in, you might only end up with 100 grams of the rosin, but it's super concentrated. So that's one area as far as the recreational side of it. When we look at the CBD products, we're in discussion with some people that are actually now doing, they're isolating compounds out of hemp, believe it or not, right? So we're seeing out of the hemp, which is still part of the cannabis sativa variety, but hemp is slightly different. It has a lot lower THC levels, but we're seeing some very interesting compounds within that we can sort of break down as well. So we're working with a Californian company there that's leading the world in that area, but generally it's very hard to say on the specific product, and it's quite variable. This is also comes back to what we're actually trying to do with the biotech side of our business to actually identify exactly this information, because right at the moment, there's a lot of conjecture. If you bring this up on a forum, they'll be debating about this for 2 to 3 weeks. And by introducing the standardization around this area, it'll actually give us yield quantities based on particular technology and based on particular strains as well. So ultimately, that's where we're trying to take that into the future.
Great, thank you. So as well as the tax, how are you able to generate return on your investment, and are you going to supply to your own pharmacies to avoid middleman fees?
Good question. So basically, the return on investment is always a big one for us. Like I said, I've dealt with I've run public companies before, so I know what it's like to at the end of the day, when we have this level of investment, we're actually working for the shareholders first and foremost. I just want to make that very clear. And so the return on investment is, obviously, I'm a shareholder. All the partners you see here are shareholders in the company. So we're all in the same best interest to deliver the highest profit as we possibly can. One of the problems with it, private equity in Australia, which even though this is crowdfunding, it's still referenced as sort of private equity investment. It's very hard to get your investment out and look at an exit strategy once you get into a private business. We're very aware of that. I'm not sure what I can say because of some of the ASX regulations around crowdfunding, but let's just say we're starting point here. There might be a larger capital raise in the near future in the US that actually could increase basically the value of the company. But at the same time, we're always looking at novel ways where any investor can have an exit strategy. So we will be working closely on that bit, but we are limited right at the moment what we can say because we're under the regulations of ASIC around crowdfunding. So I can't answer that question in entirety, other than saying it's a high level focus for us to do that return on investment. Happy investors will tend to invest more, and we're starting a journey here. We want our investors to join us on that journey over a long period of time. We also understand that people want to exit, they'll come and go. So we want to accommodate that best we possibly can.
Great, thank you. Are you liaising with any Australian cannabis growers at this time?
We are. So we believe probably the top agronomist in Australia is Tom Forrest, who's based out of South Australia. We have had quite a few discussions with him. He's doing some very novel outdoor growing capabilities, and we would see him as probably one of the world leaders in outdoor growing of cannabis. So we're working very closely with him as far as they currently have cultivation in New Zealand, but more importantly, the information he sits on is very good for us. We always are working with different people too. Obviously, it's a growth area, and there's no shortage of people that are reaching out to us as far as offering their services, but we're very sort of frugal in as far as our due diligence on what people we work with as well. Let's just say it is the cannabis industry, so there is a lot of, let's be very clear here, there's a lot of snake oil salesmen, there's a lot of stoners involved in the industry as well, and we're just trying to be very pragmatic and proactive as far as dealing with the best people to deliver upon what we think is a professional process forward.
And just to expand on that, we're currently working with some of the top growers on planet Earth in California. We also do have a lot of connections in Canada and British Columbia, and also a lot of legacy growers in New Zealand and in Australia that have come from potentially the black market that are now entering into the legal cannabis space. We do want to start, because part of our manifesto is to have the best cannabis on the planet for our consumers. And so we will be engaging in trying to provide that from all of the areas in the world that we grow in and that we collaborate with.
Brilliant, thank you. So I understand currently there are different products that you can sell in the US versus in Australia. Are there any plans to move those products into Australia if or when the TGA changes its regulations?
Really great question. And this is fundamentally what we're setting up here in Australia to do. We want to be at the forefront. So we will actually have all the foundations, all the particular protocols necessary that once it gets legalized in Australia, we want to be the number one company at the forefront of understanding that distribution and what we call Californian excellence in innovation in cannabis industry. We have access to that information. We have access to what has worked in those markets. And we have that ability that no one else really has in Australia to bring that capability to Australia. So we're positioning ourselves to be at the forefront through that legalization. And I just want to mention that Will's activation he's doing as far as cannabis and like putting the cannabis leaves up on the Sydney Opera House, and a lot of actually stunts like this is bringing a lot of attention to legalization in Australia. We are working with the major political parties too to actually help them understand what is involved as far as the policies needed to do the legalization. We're working with other people such as the Lambert Initiative in Sydney University, also the Pennington Institute is doing a lot of work on statistical data around drug use in Australia. So we really want to be at the forefront of when the legalization happens in Australia, we'll be set up to actually bring exactly our strategy and our structure into place. But more importantly, we're helping drive the legalization policies as well.
And we have quite a history of working with these political parties. Myself, with all of the activism stuff, we've worked with the Greens, with the Legalised Cannabis Party over the last several years. We also are in the works of we're having a documentary made about us for one of the largest streaming services on the planet at the moment, talking about our 10-year history of what we're achieving. So my history in media, in creating TV shows and movies, obviously that is applied to a lot of different industries. And a lot of this content creation that I've had in the past, working for companies like Fireball, Red Bull, Monster Energy, all of my history working as a professional athlete and creating content is very applicable to these brands and can be cross-pollinated over a large area. And that, combined with Jeff's history of applied sciences and Daniel's history of network marketing and applied marketing, we are really going to be able to create a really radical impact in a whole lot of different sectors here in Australia, in America, and in Europe and in Asia. And we hope to bring a lot of those expertise that we see from overseas into the Australian market, and then not just say that we're better than them, but we'd like to work with local people in the local industries to help progress us. And because we can learn stuff from Australia as we can learn stuff from California, and we want to bring that together and make, as Jeff said, a symbiotic system that we can kind of take forward and really create impact for the end consumer and for the planet. We're all very passionate about this plant, and that's how we all came together, was serendipitously, because We want to, in fact, impact onto the world and have change. And this is not just a profit-driven organization. We're very much just as passionate as we are about profit, as we are about helping people in the universe and in the world to understand that this is the God plan.
Can I just add one other element too that I think is quite an area that no one seems to want to talk about? The actual legal market in Australia for cannabis product is about $136 million. The whole market in Australia is about $360 million as far as the legal industry. And only 136 million of that end up in product that you buy through the dispensaries, what we call legal product. And basically in your flour, your gummies, and also your CBD oils as well. By comparison, the illicit market in Australia is $5 billion per year. Now, the government, it's estimated the government's missing out on a $28 billion basically revenue that could be coming in over a 10-year period from cannabis if it gets legalized. To add even worse to that scenario, our hard-earned taxpayer dollars that we hand over to the government's spending $3.4 billion per year on the Australian police force to fight just day-to-day users that have no criminal background. They might like to just have a relaxation joint after work or something like that. There's been close to 800,000 people busted by the police relative to this $3.4 billion spent in this area. When you talk to any of these initiatives that are trying to get the government to understand what the bulk of this problem is the fact that the black market controls the cannabis in Australia. We're all for standardization of this. We're all for the policy to actually help flip that bit out as well too. But I think that's very prevalent that no one wants to talk about these factors, and we think it's very prudent as far as understanding those nuances for us to be able to work in the direction we are.
Thank you. That's so informative and good to know. We've got a few questions, but we are running out of time, so apologies. I'll just go through one more question, but if anybody does have any further questions, please feel free to reach out to the Byron Bay Bio team via their Birchal profile. I'll add the link in the chat. This is hard to pick, but I'll just pick one. So apologies if this has already been mentioned, but are there any plans in the future to branch into Europe?
Yes, we basically, Will and myself, we nearly invested into a license in Germany, but then find the market was actually flooded over in Europe. So there's great opportunity in Europe, and we have talked to 3 or 4 people. We will be distributing over through some channels we have now over there, and we actually also have a certified manufacturer over there as well. Right at the moment, the European market is actually flooded with CBD products and flower products from Canada. I think most of the cannabis products legally sold in Europe, 80% that's Canadian imports. So the market's flooded. To go into that market, we really got to strategize what the unique value proposition is. Otherwise, we're just entering a highly competitive space that would most likely fail. So we're really focused on the biotech side of it, what we can do with the seeds, and also around policy-driven standardization that will help lead to legalization as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We will be sending the recording around, so if you have missed anything, you will be welcome to rewatch it. And we'd also love it if you would share it with anybody that you think might be interested in this campaign. If you do have any further questions, please reach out to the team via their profile, which I've shared in the chat. And if you've got any questions for Birchal, you can reach out at support@birchal.com. I just want to say thank you so much to everybody who's joined us today and for your amazing questions. And thank you so much for joining us, everybody from the Byron Bay Bio team. Really looking forward to your offer.
Great. Thank you so much. And thanks for the audience joining us today. And thank you, Birchal, for your assistance in this crowdfunding raise we're doing. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.